the biggest thing is Deshaun Watson, right? I mean, I would say going into the next 3 weeks probably, there is a chance that we find out what Deshaun Watson's penalty is going to be. And, it's been a long road. It's been a lot of lawsuits and, of course, 4 more added to the initial tally. And could there be more? We don't know. But I think the NFL is at the point, or is getting to the point very quickly of everybody kind of needs to know and wants to know. And to have some sort of certainty, to have some sort of resolution, even though both sides can actually appeal the decision, I think that's something a lot of people want. So, I think there's a real chance in this month before training camp kicks off that we find out about, how long is Deshaun Watson suspended. So that's probably not the only thing hanging over us, but the biggest thing.
Okay, so here's a tweet from 2:05 p.m. on this Feel Good Friday. Let's Love, June 17th, 2022, from Mark Mask with an E at the end. He's an NFL reporter for the Washington Post, which, by the way, Bezos owns up.
That's right.
We learned through the entire Commander situation. His headline, I didn't get to read the entire article. It just came out. I'm not a good reader anyways. The NFL plans to argue to new disciplinary officer Sue L. Robinson for a significant suspension of Deshaun Watson for violating the personal conduct policy, multiple sources say. So now there's a couple follow-ups here. The NFL plans to argue to new disciplinary officer Sue L. Robinson for a significant suspension. But isn't it that Sue gives a recommendation to the NFL, then the NFL can do whatever they want? So this doesn't really make much sense, or am I misreading the entire situation?
A little bit of a misread, with all due respect. So basically,
by me or him?
By you. Now, by him, I think most people are expecting, like we talked about last time, most people are expecting a suspension. I don't know what sizable means. I assume he means more than 6. I would say that probably makes sense at this point, more than 6. We don't know what it's going to be. More than 6 probably makes sense. So this third-party arbitrator, based on this new method of doing things, she comes out with the penalty. And it is going to be, I assume, announced. Deshaun Watson is suspended X number of games. And then the NFL can say, well, actually, we wanted this, so we're going to appeal. Then the NFLPA could say, actually, we wanted, none. And they can appeal. And in the end, Roger Goodell takes all the information and he comes out with the ruling. But the first ruling, not really a recommendation, but the first official ruling comes from this third-party arbitrator.
So that's just not a ruling, then it's just a public announcement of what she recommends?
It's an opinion.
It's the same thing as when a player gets suspended, then the NFLPA can appeal, and then the eventual penalty is whatever it ends up being.
No, because when a player is suspended, he's actually suspended. When Sue says whatever her punishment is, that isn't the actual punishment.
No, but the player does get appeal rights. It's just this time they both get appeal rights.
Will we know what Sue's original, like if she says 6 games, will that go right to Raj? Because we never hear Sue's part. This is all new territory. That's a good question. I believe we will, because what it's going to be is an official ruling of this is the suspension, and then we'll contact both sides and say, okay, well, are you good with this? Or are you going to appeal? But I believe we are going to find out the initial penalty on Deshaun Watson. When do you think that'll happen?
So it's June 17th now. Training camps will kind of ramp up by July 25th, 26th, 27th. I imagine in this next month. I mean, that has been everyone's goal throughout. I mean, it's coming close. There have been times in the NFL calendar when as you go from June to July into July 4th, that has sometimes in the past been a time to announce penalties. I believe Jameis Winston, when he got penalized, was in that window. There's been some others, so perhaps that's the time when we'll all find. So maybe a couple of weeks.
All right, you might have already done this, and I apologize. Will you explain this to me like I am an actual 5-year-old? So Sue is doing her own investigation. This is the first time this has happened. A third party's...
No. The NFL did the investigation, hands it over to her.
Sue investigates the investigation, and she gives her recommendation of a punishment?
She gives her punishment.
But it's not an actual punishment until Roger Goodell and the NFL says, yes, that is the actual punishment.
We're not going to hear Sue's punishment, I bet.
I really think we are.
Isn't it going to confuse people, though? like a recommended 6 games, then Raj comes out and says no, it's actually 12?
No, because this happens. This does happen where news will come out and you'll see the language that reporters will use. You'll say, this person is facing a 6-game penalty. And then when he's actually suspended, it's okay, well, this has now been appealed down to 4 games, or there's been a settlement. Or a lot of times.
So whatever Sue says is that is actual punishment immediately upon her making her. It's not a recommendation. Then she's giving actual punishment.
She's giving actual punishment, and then they get to appeal and say, well, on these grounds, based on this precedent, we think it should be something else. Again, but we have not had this before, so I guess it's possible. It's secret till the end. It seems
Who rules
like
the appeal? Who does the appeal?
I believe I'm not 100% sure who will actually hear the appeal. I know in the end, it's Roger Goodell coming out with what he believes.
So she has a recommendation. The NFLPA has a recommendation. And then it sounds like the NFL also has a recommendation. And then
yeah, I think that's probably a good read on it. And then in the end, it comes down to what Roger Goodell says.
So can we go back to that tweet? Do we have the ability to pull that tweet up, or I will read it from Mark Mask? Just so I know, because when you said I misread it, I obviously took that as a shot at me, but I could very easily do that with all these stuff. The NFL plans to argue to new disciplinary officer Sue L. Robinson for a significant suspension of Deshaun Watson for violating the personal conduct policy, multiple sources say. But if they're all just laying out their recommendations, does that mean the NFL, whoever's representing the NFL, is looking for a big suspension so they don't want Sue to come in a little bit light so that Roger Goodell feels like he can go lighter? Is that what they're trying to say there?
I don't think that's what they're trying to say. What it seems like to me, like if you look at the way this kind of lays out, like let's say like the police, right? Like they will argue for charges for someone who did something wrong. And then in the end, the jury will say, all right, well, we take all this data, all this investigation, we come out and here's the ruling. And then in the end, the person gets to appeal the ruling to a different judge. That's basically what happens here.
Yeah, but the NFL is petitioning so the judge would be petitioning the cop.
This is a jointly... Just so we're clear, this is a jointly appointed third-party arbitrator. So both sides get together. So it's not like this.
Oh, so the NFLPA is telling Sue we would like less. The NFL is telling Sue we would like more.
Yes.
But
or maybe the NFLPA is saying we would like none. They are both arguing different things to her, and then she takes this all together. And
so she should judge, basically, from these two situations.
Yes.
And then she takes it to Roger Goodell, who inevitably oversees all of the findings.
I believe that is correct.
Supreme Court. Okay, so.
Yeah. When did she come on board?
Recent, right?
I believe this is the first time that she has ruled.
Jeez.
Unless I missed it.
Really stepped
to
in
the NFL.
Yeah.
Wow, I
need you here.
You know why this is? Because Roger was the judge, jury, executioner, and that was always talked about. He definitely is, but this is another layer of, hey, we're listening.
Gathering information. Yeah, I guess he's gathering all the information he can, then he makes the decision. Just an easier way, maybe. I don't know. He still makes the decision.
It seems like it's a more neutral way, and I know that the NFLPA did not like when it was just his way, and that's like he was the judge, jury, and executioner. This is a more fair way because it's jointly appointed, hopefully.
He still is. Here, let's run through this one more time so we have it understood. The NFL plans to argue to new disciplinary officer Sue L. Robinson for a significant suspension of Deshaun Watson. Okay, so in the trial between Sue L. Robinson as judge and the NFL and the NFLPA representing both sides of that is what the NFL is pitching for. The NFLPA is pitching for something obviously different. That's why there's even a trial happening, and she would have to pitch it. Now, these findings will get sent right up to. From our story, a source on Deshaun Watson's side of the case said the NFL probably will seek a suspension of a full season. Okay, who's representing the NFL in this?
I believe I don't know if it's like representing the NFL, but Lisa Friel and her team has been doing the investigation. So I would imagine they would take their findings and that's what would be presented.
Okay, so Lisa Friel is representing, and whoever's representing from the NFLPA. Let's get back to it here.
NFLPA lawyers.
The NFL hopes to have the entire disciplinary process, including any potential appeal to Commissioner Roger Goodell or his designee, resolved by the start of training camp. The initial disciplinary ruling is to be made by Robinson under the current version of the conduct policy. But that's not actually a ruling. That is just a recommendation.
Well, hold on. Let me clear up something because he actually makes a good point. Goodell could theoretically he could designate himself. He could designate someone else to make the eventual ruling. So it's Roger Goodell or his designee. That was a good point it's Maskey, by the way.
So he is the shield for all the owners. Roger Goodell could potentially elect a shield for the shield.
Yeah.
Because there is a trial for a trial happening right now.
Yes.
Fascinating.
Yes.
All roads lead back to the same. It just seems like we're taking some different paths to get there. Let's go into the next tweet here. From our story, the NFLPA intends to cite in its defense of Deshaun Watson the lack of suspensions by the league under the personal conduct policy of Daniel Snyder, Robert Kraft, and Jerry Jones. Source says, as first reported by Pro Football Talk. So Roger Goodell almost delegated, some of the stuff to somebody that Sue, who he is deemed, and both the NFLPA and the NFL have deemed like very, very good. This is the person that should be handling this, kind of take the hands off. But inevitably, that ruling is just a recommendation to Roger Goodell, who either said, or a designee who says, yep, that's what we're going to go with, or I don't know about that, right? And Roger's never going to go under the recommendation. He won't do that PR-wise, right? No way.
I don't think that's happened. I don't know, but I don't think there's precedent for that.
Well, this is precedent. Possible. There's no precedent for this type of thing in the history of punishment in the NFL, right?
Right. There's precedent for his designee making a ruling, but not with this current structure. That's why it's so interesting. I mean, I'm like, there's a lot. I mean, we've talked about Deshaun for 2 years. There's so much, but this process is extremely interesting because it has not happened before.
And very serious allegations. So she's giving a recommendation, not a ruling.
Right.
I think is what we need to.
It is a ruling essentially, but it's going to be treated as a recommendation because Goodell still has the ultimate power if need be, if one of the sides appeals.
So this is square rectangle.
It's the same.
This is square. The ruling is a recommendation. The ruling is
it's the same way that a jury verdict is a recommendation because it can be appealed, essentially.
Well, some trials don't have a jury and just use a judge. It's almost like that. Hey, defense, prosecution, then the judge makes the decision.
Well, that's what it used to be, right? And Roger Goodell was one wearing the cape and the wig and everything like that. Now
that's what it still is, I'm saying. They present your case, tell me what you think, and I'll tell you.
Not a cape, whatever, the dress thing they all fucking wear. Robes. Sue is the jury, though, is what you're saying. Sue is the jury.
Yes.
Who is going to the judge, who is Roger Goodell.
Yes.
Happy we got here. Yeah. All right, this is good journalism.
So Goodell won't go under, but would the designee go under the recommendation? Because then that's not really Roger.
Yeah.
Why would Raj designate somebody for this case?
For that reason.
So that if it's wrong and there's more that comes out, it's not Goodell, right? Somebody else can.
If you're the head guy, though, you can't point and say, hey, I'm the boss, but hey, I'm going to blame my guy under me.
Right. I mean, this is.
You can't.
I'm with AJ. No, I'm with AJ,
leadership.
though. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, but that would be the argument for Roger Goodell to make the ruling himself.
I'm not saying Roger Goodell would ever do this. Okay, Roger Goodell seems to be the guy who eats the bullets for everybody and everything. I mean, that has been his thing in the past, and I assume he has even admitted to making mistakes. There's no way he does a designee for something like this, as big as this is. But you acting like that's terrible leadership. Are you in the world that we're in right now, dude? Are you even? Hey. Are you here on a day-to-day? The people making decisions in a lot of places are doofuses, dude. Like that is a very, very,
a ton of doofuses. A lot of doofuses. That's what separates the elite performers. I feel like they're still out there.
Yeah, you need the rain to appreciate the sun. I very much understand what you're saying, but I think Goodell will be doing this. But I do like the fact that they add in an extra. Well. Also, there is a chance we could potentially give this to somebody else.